That was the CUCURELLA zone. Comes up with some big goals and big moments.
Riling up Mason Mount and getting in his face. He's got a sort of personal beef with him. You love to see it.
Gyökeres, Osimhen and Delap. Who would you go for if you were Chelsea?
I would just lean towards Osimhen. I think Osimhen is, he just seems more like a Chelsea striker.
It does feel like
he just feels like a Chelsea
you know
striker.
what? I was thinking, before you said that, I was thinking he's a Chelsea type.
But what is it? Why is that?
He's a little bit raw, he's a little bit unorthodox, and I like the fact that he's got to put himself about. A decision needs to be made, and it needs to be made very quickly about who is going to be the #1 next season.
It is 13 years to the day when Chelsea won our first Champions League trophy. She got shivers just saying that.
Yeah, I was sobbed. Yeah. Absolutely, I'm getting my I sobbed on that day. It was one of those moments that you thought you'd never ever see. Kings of Europe, and some clubs in London are still chasing it.
Honestly, I feel like
if you wrote the script, you went to Hollywood and you said, right, here's I've got the script. They'd say, right again, that will never happen.
Yeah. We've won 4 out of the last 5 league games. One of the most informed teams in the league based on results alone. And at this point in the season, that's all that matters.
If we get the first goal, it puts them in a position they don't like. That first goal cannot put a price on it.
Welcome to Inside Chelsea, the show for Chelsea fans by Chelsea fans. I'm Olivia Buzaglo and I'm joined by former Chelsea defender Jason Cundy and broadcaster and lifelong Chelsea fan Kweku Afari. Now, Chelsea 1, Manchester United 0 has put us in such a good position. I love that we are going into the final day of the Premier League season, Jace, with Champions League football in our hands.
Yeah, and if you'd asked me through this run after we got beat at home by Fulham on Boxing Day about 6 weeks ago, I didn't think we were capable of getting there. There were too many flaws in our game, too many holes in our game. But we've somehow managed by hook or by crook to get ourselves in a position where it's in our own hands. Now, it's a tough game. I'm not underestimating that. At the time we're doing this, Manchester City have still got to take on Bournemouth. That's a big game. I expect them to win. However, Bournemouth can still potentially get European football. They've got something to play for.
Yeah.
You look at the teams who've got something to play for. It's tough for Wet Forest. I saw them yesterday against West Ham. Cheering on West Ham, they're terrible, so there's no point.
I mean, the Jared Bowen goal was something, though,
It was, but, you know, they left themselves too much. You're right, Liv, it's in their own hands. You can't ask much more than that. Only one away win, though, since we beat Spurs in early December, and that was away at Fulham last minute. So our away record is pretty turgid.
I mean, talking of the Manchester United game then, it was a game that Chelsea needed to win, and for large chunks of it, I don't think any Chelsea fan thought we were going to win it. But, Kweku, at this point in the season where Chelsea are at, and you know that you've just got to win, it doesn't matter how those wins come, does the performance really matter?
For me, from like mid-April onwards, performances don't matter. It's all about results. And again, we're going for a place in the top 4. But say we were a team that were going for the title and won that game in that fashion, everyone would be like, that's what champions do. Just win the game when you're not playing well.
Yeah.
And so I know that fans weren't too pleased with the first half performance, but for me, it was all about the result. And if you look at Manchester United, I know they've been absolutely terrible this season. At the point of recording, they are 16th in the Premier League table. But why are you laughing?
It's just I don't think people are actually deeping how bad to be 16th and 17th, United and Spurs, is like you're literally. I can't even put into words. Like,
well, they're the worst side, 2 worst sides outside the bottom 3.
Who are 3 of the worst sides we've ever seen?
The worst sides we've seen in the Premier League.
I remember the season we finished 12th 2 years ago. Everybody was talking about it. That's not getting enough coverage. But if you look at Man United in terms of how they can raise their performances, look at their performances in Europe, still unbeaten in that competition. And then you look at their performance in the league. Away at City, won that game. Away at Liverpool, drew that game. Liverpool, best team in the country. And away against Arsenal in the FA Cup, won that game on penalties. And so it's a United team that can raise the performance. And they played a very strong team against Chelsea on Friday. And so for us to get the result in that, absolutely huge. And that's all that really matters. 1 more game to go, guys. If we do it, we're in the Champions League. And if you asked us at the beginning of the season, is Champions League football and potentially win the Conference League, is that a good season? We'd all say yes.
Yeah.
Just one thing on that. I can't, well, no, I'll give with Kweku on that. But if we play like we did in that first half...
We'll get beat.
Against Forest, we get beat. Man United are not good enough to take advantage of how poor we were in that first half.
Yeah.
In fact, large parts of that game come up with a brilliant piece of skill from REECE. I mean, that was the difference between the 2 sides. That was it. That one moment was the difference between the two sides. Yeah, Nonny should have had at least one, maybe two, second half to put it at daylight. We were terrible. But look, draw a line, no one cares about the result, but we cannot afford to be the lack of energy, the lack of urgency. If we play like that against Forest, I'm sorry, they're too well organised, disciplined to make sure that we cannot take advantage, even when they're out of position. I
know you said, Kweku, that I agree with you, and that right now it's all about results and just getting a win. But does it not worry you that this was the biggest game of Chelsea's season so far, and it felt like the players didn't get up for it? Because we have got another final and then another final in the Conference League against Betis. But that final, I think, against Forest in the Premier League is way more important than the Conference League final to me. Of course. But did it not worry you that the players really felt like they didn't get up for it?
Do you know what? For the longest time in this iteration of Chelsea, we've seen really good performances without results.
Yeah.
Give me results without performances all day long. That's classic Chelsea, right? That's the heritage of Chelsea. Like where you're not playing well, maybe not as badly as you played against Manchester United, but give me results over performances. And over the last few weeks, think about how we turned it around against Fulham. Think about we were poor against Everton, but still got the results. We won 4 out of the last 5 league games, one of the most informed teams in the league based on results alone. And at this point in the season, that's all that matters. So I understand everybody's point about how poorly we played, but ultimately that bit of quality from REECE James, the goal from CUCURELLA, who has been amazing this seson, is what saw us through against Manchester United, who have taken points off some of the best sides in the country this year.
Yeah, we'll get on to REECE James and Marc Cucurella in a second. But do you think there's an element of nerves, Jace? It is a young team. We have spoken about it so much on this show. It's a young team. They're inexperienced. We don't really have the Silvers, the Azpilicuetas anymore. Do you think they're a little bit nervous, knowing how big that Man United game was, and the Forest game, and the Betis game we have coming up?
I wouldn't go there directly. What we do have is a young squad, and with young players, you get inconsistencies.
Yeah.
You know, and our season has been so inconsistent. There have been some moments that the highs have been brilliant. There's been 1 or 2 really good performances, but largely we've been slightly underwhelming. And I think that comes with the squad that we've got, the age of the squad, the lack of experience in that squad at times. There isn't a Silva, there isn't an Azpilicueta, there's not a John Terry. We don't have those type of characters to help us through the tricky times. And, you know, had we conceded against Man United, that Harry Maguire goal was half a kneecap. You know, I'm not sure we've got the character to get back into that game. Look, we've done it against Fulham, and well done us, but there's that still concern that we're not quite that team yet.
Yeah, I agree. I think that against Forest, we need to take the lead. Because if we go 1-0 down, I don't think there's many Chelsea fans that feel like we'll get back into the game. And that's perfect for Forest as well.
Yeah, I was going to say the way Forest play football, because I think it's good that Forest have something to play for, because they are going to have to come at us at some point. They can't just do what they always do and sit back. However, if they score early, you know exactly how they're going to play, and that suits Elanga, Callum Hudson. Hudson-Odoi's injured. He said he might be back for the Chelsea game, which I'm sure he is very, very excited for. But they've got the perfect players on the counter, so we need to make sure we do not go behind in that game.
Yeah, we do. But Joe, what's really served us well in terms of bringing that grit to our team is Lavia being back. And I don't think you can underestimate how important he has been since his return from injury. Caicedo, of course, we know is one of the best midfielders in the world.
Yeah.
But Lavia, he's got so much ability, that boy. And if he does stay fit and he can find that consistent rhythm playing alongside Caicedo, who we finally shifted from right back. REECE playing right back, I think, helped us. We've seen the quality of REECE. I think that's really served us well in the last 4 or 5
Can I ask you both a question?
Yeah.
Go on.
Who do you start up top? Because Tyreek George started against Man United, and I felt a bit sorry for him. I thought the game was too big for him. Clearly, he's a talented boy and is going to have a very bright future. I felt that against the going up balls, you got Harry Maguire coming through the back, you got Lindelof coming through the back of him.
Same as Forest, isn't it?
Yeah, but
Murillo and Milenkovic.
Right. I go Palmer, and I keep the wide men the same. And then you've got Caicedo in his best position, Lavia in his best position, REECE James in his best position, Enzo as an 8 or 8 joining 10. I personally, that's why I would have started against United. What do you guys think?
No, I agree. I suppose the issue for us with that is out of possession, where we like to defend in the 4-4-2. So obviously you have Cole Palmer as one of the front men, but then Enzo being one of the furthest forward in terms of pressing. I don't know if that necessarily suits his game, but I would agree with you. In terms of on the ball, that works perfectly. Cole Palmer is a false 9, dragging Murillo and Milenkovic in positions they don't want to be in. They don't want to drop into those positions where Cole Palmer drops into, pulls them out. Also, Murillo, he pulled up a couple of times with injuries on the weekend, so we'll see how fit or not fit he is. But I agree with you. That's probably our best team in terms of getting everybody on the pitch.
That's the only way to get everyone on the pitch.
Well, we thought that against United. We went Tariq George, Lavia on the bench.
Yeah.
But Lavia can't play in the Conference League final, so he has to start. He has to start against Forest.
Personally, I agree with you.
Yeah.
But that's not what I saw against Man United.
Yeah.
So that surprised me a little bit, and I felt for Tariq. There was a big task and he didn't really get the support. And there was a bit of a lonely soul up there at times.
I feel bad for him. I feel bad for him, like, in terms of being put in that position. I think that Tariq George is a very talented young player. Obviously got the goal against Fulham, which is huge.
That was a lovely finish.
It was a lovely finish.
Well.
Almost like it went under the radar. I don't think many Chelsea fans thought we were going to get back and win that game.
And I mean, the Neto goal was an absolute worldie in the last minute.
But him up top is not the solution. And I just think that with Nicholas Jackson out, a costly elbow against Newcastle, it's left us in a very vulnerable position.
Yeah, it has. Let's talk about the positives from the Man United game, because Marc Cucurella, should I call him Marcus Alonso? Because what on earth? He is. Every time I see Marc Cucurella, he's in the box. And he's come up with some very important goals in some very important games, and he's been one of our most important players this season. And had it not have been for Moises Caicedo having the season that he's had, Marc Cucurella probably would have been Chelsea's player.
I think, Mark, you talk about players that suit the system that he wants to play, Maresca. Marc Cucurella is perfect because he can come inside and he can go and be the extra number 8 or that, as we've seen. That was the Cucurella zone, wasn't it? That little area he comes in between the fullback and the centre half, or depending on what the system is, 2 centre halves. He arrives in there. Countless times he's done that, and you're absolutely right, Liv. Comes up with some big goals and big moments.
That's a good goal. Good goal. Because we saw Noni miss a few chances that forward should put away. Cucurella seems to have the soul of a forward. He's got 5 league goals this season, 7 goals in all competition. And again, I know his first 18 months at the club weren't great, but if you look at the sample size in terms of how good he was at Brighton, how good he's been in the last 18 months at Chelsea, I think we can agree that he's a very, very good footballer. And in the Premier League, I can't name many better left-backs than Marc Cucurella. Look at what he did at the Euros for Spain when they won it. I think he's been absolutely incredible, and he brings that S-housery that Chelsea have been missing, right? Opposition fans absolutely hate him. He's up and at them. He's always just in the face of the opposition, riling them up. I think we've missed that at Chelsea for a long, long time. He embodies what Chelsea are. He's got a big heart.
He's got a big heart, big soul.
He
might be little in size, but let me tell you, stature-wise, totally different to what he's got in there. He'll battle and throw himself about. Don't worry about that.
I mean, you mentioned Housery, Kweku. Another player that's the king of that, I think, at Chelsea right now is Enzo Fernandez. He did it. We all saw it. We all saw what Enzo Fernandez did, and he got the Chelsea fans right on side by doing it. Playing with conjunctivitis as well. Now, he came out and said he was playing with one eye. Not quite sure you can still see when you've got conjunctivitis, but to play through that.
Sometimes you've got to play through injuries, play through ailments, play through injury. There's all sorts. There's not a footballer out there that hasn't played with some sort of either muscular strain or something sore or maybe a head cold. You've got to get on with it. No one's going to feel sorry for you.
I think testament to Enzo Fernandez this season, no one's talking about a price tag. And I'm not saying that he's repaid it. I don't think a midfielder can repay over £100 million in terms of value. They don't score goals. But in terms of settling into English football, in terms of being the player that we kind of saw at the World Cup in 2022, I think he's had a good season, Enzo Fernandez, and he's really endearing himself to Chelsea fans. I know that Chelsea fans are mixed, to say the least, when it comes to Mason Mount. But riling up Mason Mount and getting in his face, he's got a sort of personal beef with him. You love to see it.
I wasn't going to bring it up.
Last season, when Mason came off the bench in the 4-3 game.
Something weird.
They had a run in there as well. I don't know, there was a little bit of afters. What happened when they played together? Don't know.
I don't know. I'd quite like to know. I don't know. But anyway, you mentioned it earlier. The only reason that goal happens, Jace, is because of Reece James. Now, we've seen him at right back. We know that's his best position. We know how good he can be. That turn and that ball is just so special and is everything that Reece James is about, and it was just, he didn't even look up.
No.
Didn't even look up.
No.
He said, I put a ball into an area because I knew that Mark or someone would be there. And it's just inch perfect, and there's nothing those centre-backs can do about it.
When you're in a game like that, and, you talk about the quality, sometimes it just takes one cross, pass, that can change a game. And too many times I felt that we don't put enough balls into the box, but sometimes when we do, I don't know if we get enough bodies in there, but it's just, without that, we draw. I don't see an open play how we were going to score. It's a brilliant cross, a brilliant header, and you just can't put a price on how big that might be.
And you mentioned the lack of quality in terms of when we get to the final third. With Reece James, his crosses always have intent on them. There's always a direction. There's always a man who's looking to pick out. And people talk about Chelsea being really far away, and we are a few pieces away from being where we want to be. But if you look at our team, we've got, like I said, one of the best left backs in the league. When Reece James is fit, I'm telling you, there's not a better right back than Reece James in the league and maybe in world football. I think he's that good. And so to have him playing well, also taking on more of the leadership role. Reece James, let's all be honest, is a hothead. But I've seen it a few times in recent weeks where he's been the person to try and bring down the temperature and try and pull his teammates away from the referee. And that's what we've needed from Reece, right? He's not maybe the most natural leader, but he's grown into that role. I'm seeing him in post-match interviews, taking more onus on. And I love to see it because when he's fit and when he's firing, there's not many better footballers in the Premier League than Reece James.
No, there's not. And actually, like, it's so nice to see him stay fit.
Yeah.
Touch wood.
But being managed well, though. There's games where we're frustrated that Reece James ain't starting, but I think they're monitoring it well now. Back in the day, when Reece James was fit, he'd play straight away and he'd get injured. But now there's games where Reece James is on the bench, even games that we need to win, he's not starting sometimes. Caicedo's playing at right back. And that's because they're managing his minutes, and I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, let's move on. We've sort of touched on it because Tyreek George obviously played through the middle against Man United, but the only reason he did that was because of Nicholas Jackson getting sent off in that Newcastle game. Jace, in a game that Chelsea needed to win, was that Newcastle game. We haven't actually spoken about it on Inside Chelsea because it's happened a while ago. We've beaten Man United, so we've sort of forgotten about it, but felt like a big moment and one that... Is there any coming back from this for Nicholas Jackson?
Oh, there's always coming back. He's a Chelsea player. But I think what it does do, it does highlight how petulant he can still be. And in moments in battle, you need to keep your head. And that, I felt there was a bit of frustration in his game. He kept going long. And you've got, Botman at the back, right? I mean, you've got Big Dan Burn at the back. You've got Cher at the back. I mean, it's like Land of the Giants back there, right? Every ball ran his ears. And I felt... And I'm not excusing this for him, but I felt that the way we played and how isolated he was, I felt he got a little bit frustrated up there. But he's got to make sure that doesn't get the better of him, Liv, because he let everyone down on that day. And by the way, second half performance, we were outstanding with 10 men. Outstanding. And I'd love to have seen what we could have done had we had 11v11, but we shot ourselves in the foot. No, I'm not defending him. He needs to learn. He needs to learn quickly.
I think he will as well. I think he'll understand that, he's still a very young player.
He keeps on picking yellow cards, Liv, for not football. I don't mind somebody who crunch someone. It's either that or, you
chatting to the referee or kicking the ball away.
Our discipline this season is not good enough. And we're a young team, and I think I can accept it for now. Next year, we cannot be as ill-disciplined.
Yeah, it has got to change next season. And now, season. Do you think that what happened with Nicholas Jackson, the elbow, the red card, is that a clear example as to why Chelsea may need a striker in the summer, Jace?
Yeah, I mean, there's a number of reasons why I think we need a striker next season. One, backup. Guillou is fit last week. Now, apparently, he's not, but he's young. And he's on the... Tyreek George, asking a lot of a young man who's had a really good last 2 or 3 months. Options down the middle. We've seen Neto go down there. We're talking now on Sunday, do we play Cole Palmer down? This conversation should not be taking place. We should be having a conversation about who plays in behind striker B or striker A, whatever you want to do. So, yes, coupled with the fact that he hasn't scored enough goals. That's his day job now. Early part of the season was good. Looked like he was coming on. Injury set him back. I get that and feel for that. But ultimately, the second half of the season, he's not alone, has not been good enough as a number 1, number 9 striker for Chelsea.
Oh, yeah.
I do think that with Chelsea... We haven't seen a striker score over 20 Cole Palmer scored 22 last year, but he's not a striker. Seeing a striker score 20 Premier League goals since 2017, the last time we won the league. And so it's a clear recipe for success, right? You get a striker who can put the ball in the back of the net on a regular basis and you have a great chance of winning the league. And we need that, and we haven't had that since Diego Costa. So for me, that's an absolute priority. I remember the season before we signed Costa, our striking options were Eto'o, Demba Ba and Fernando Torres. Not bad strikers in their own right, but if you've got 3 strikers, you haven't got a striker. We need a clear number 1 who's going to put the ball in the back of the net on a regular basis, and Jackson to supplement that as well. Jackson had an okay start to the season. But if we want to win the league and win major trophies and silverware, we know what we need to do.
I also think having a striker to compete with Jackson, I think will help him. I think that will help him in his long-term development.
Yeah. Now, Fabrizio Romano has said that Victor Gyökeres will be allowed to leave this summer for €65 million, which actually in this day and age doesn't feel like a lot. Obviously, Gyökeres is one of the strikers on the market. Victor Osimhen is another one of the strikers on the market. Kweku, if you had a choice between those two, because I feel like they're probably the only two that Chelsea would really go for right now. Maybe Delac as well. I think it depends on if Man United get in the Champions League. I think that makes his decision a little bit more difficult. Just out of the three of them, really, I suppose, Gyökeres, Osimhen and Delac, who would you go for if you were Chelsea?
I've been on record and propped Delac so much all season. In terms of his goal output, at a team like Ipswich that haven't created many chances, are one of the worst teams in the league, he's still scoring goals. He scored against us, and he was a handful against us.
He was a handful against us in both games.
In both games. He came off the bench in the second game, scored in the first game. And he's just... For me, I've said it on many shows, I'm going to say it again. Do you know when you look at the thread of England strikers, right? And it goes from Gary Lineker to Alan Shearer to Michael Owen to Wayne Rooney to Harry Kane. I think that Liam Delap is the next one. 30 mil relegation clause in his contract. I think you can go and get him and get somebody else if you're smart with your transfer business. So he would be my preferential choice. I do think he'll end up going to Manchester United. Out of Gyökeres and Osimhen, it's a tough one, right? Gyökeres has burst onto the scene this season. He's been very good at Sporting, scored a lot of goals. I would just lean towards Osimhen. I think Osimhen is, he just seems more like a Chelsea striker.
It does feel like
he just feels like a Chelsea striker.
I was thinking, before you said that, I was thinking, he's a Chelsea type of striker.
What is it? Why is that?
He's a little bit raw, he's a little bit unorthodox, and I like the fact that he's got to put himself about. When he put a ball, I don't know if you remember it, Newcastle away, early part of the game, and it's a brilliant cross that came in on the left-hand side. Can't remember, it probably was Noni. And the ball's gone across the 6-yard box, and I'm looking at Jackson, and Jackson's on his heels. I want someone that's going to throw themselves at him. He's the type of guy that will throw himself, and even balls he's not favourite to win.
I think Chelsea do put a lot of balls in the box, don't we? And there just seems to be no one in there that's going for it. My only worry with Osimhen, I think, if we're thinking logistically and actually sensibly, why is he playing his football in Turkey? That's my only question.
There's a political decision that one. I don't, Napoli are paying. He's a Napoli striker. Why are they going to send him out on loan if he's? I felt he fell up the club. That couldn't sort it out, and we were very much in the race from what I could gather. And then it got so late in the day that I believe that a loan deal was only possible, and I think that's why he probably didn't want to end up at Turkey. That wouldn't have been his choice, would it?
Well, it got so late in the day, and the Turkish transfer window was open for a few days longer, so that's why that was the only option for him. And Conte, when he came in, said, "I want Romelu Lukaku. I don't want Victor Osimhen." He's playing in Turkey, scoring goals, not just in the Turkish league, but in the Europa League. I remember they played against Spurs. He absolutely bossed them. Doesn't say much against Spurs, really. But he's a striker that I saw him up close and personal at AFCON, and I was a bit disappointed. He scored one goal for a Nigeria team that made the final. And if you're going to get into final third and not take your chances, in the Premier League, your team will be punished. So he's not the most clinical, but I think in terms of physicality, he reminds me a bit of Costa. In terms of the way that he's willing to make runs in behind, he has a bit of that as well. So for me, I'll take him over Gyökeres, but I wouldn't be disappointed with either, to be fair.
Do you not think wages will be an issue? Because I feel like the reason he went to Turkey was because he didn't want to reduce his wages. That's a big part of his decision why he goes to certain places. But with our wage structure at the moment, there's just absolutely no way in any world that Victor Osimhen comes in unless he takes a pay cut.
It does feel as though it's a stumbling block.
Yeah, massive
one. A big stumbling block. But then someone else has got to come up. I mean, there's creative ways now of structuring contracts, as we've seen with these.
Just give him a 20-year contract.
There you go. Problem solved.
But if you want to be a team that's playing the Champions League regularly and a team that's winning titles, you're going to have to break that model eventually. I get it in terms of getting us to this position, but eventually, if you want to start bringing world-class players to the team or to the squad, you're going to have to maybe break that model to an extent for the really special players. I'm not saying that he's extremely special. I'm not saying that he should come in and earn more than Cole Palmer, but like Jay said, there's creative ways of
well, I mean, look, we haven't even spoken about players got to leave. I mean, Raheem Sterling comes back. He is, I believe, the highest. There's a lot of players that are on huge wages right now that are going to come back, and the decks need to be cleared. That squad has got to be trimmed down, which should free up quite a weekly salary.
Well, talking of how we could potentially save money, Petrovic has been Strasbourg's player of the season. Now, we've spoken about goalkeepers a lot on this show. Is that position still a priority? And after his season at Strasbourg, Jace, would you give him a chance?
I've got to be honest, I haven't seen him. I've not seen enough, heard good things. You know, there's obviously a lot of Chelsea accounts out there on social media. I follow those that give feedback and watch him more often than I do. That is a decision that needs to be made. I was a little surprised he went out on loan in the summer, but that's happened and that's done. We now got him welcome back. We got the young boy Penders, the Belgian goalkeeper, who was supposed to be the next Courtois.
We've got like
We've
8
signed.
goalkeepers.
Yeah, we've got lots of goalkeepers, but a lot of them are very young. A decision needs to be made, and it needs to be made very quickly about who is going to be the number one next season. Because of the last 2 or 3 seasons, it felt as though we don't quite know who is our best keeper. Sanchez has been in. Petrovic comes in. Poch then dropped Sanchez for Petrovic. New manager comes in. Petrovic sent it on loan. There's not been, it feels like a really clear idea. Yeah. That decision has got to be made for the best of the football club and, of course, each of the players. It's interesting what we do now in the Club World Cup, because that's just around the corner. He's a Chelsea player. Would he be part of that squad? That's an interesting thought.
He should be. And if you look across the country, the top teams are getting their business done early. Arsenal have already sorted out Zubimendi. Liverpool, Frimpong's coming in, now talking to Kirkes. That looks like it's happening. Last summer, teams kind of stood still. If you look at the effect of, like, first-team players in terms of what clubs bought, who did Liverpool buy that improved their first team? Nobody. Who did Arsenal buy that improved their first team? They bought Moreno, but is that really like a game changer? Who did City buy that improved their first team? Nobody. And so teams stood still last summer. This summer, teams are going early. We need to have a big summer if we want to compete where we want to compete next season. And I think we will.
I just hope the Club World Cup doesn't get in the way, because it's a bit of a nuisance.
It does open for a little bit before the Club World Cup, doesn't it? And then
yeah, it does. But, you know, get your ducks in a row. Yeah. Because when the Club World Cup goes on, you'd think that the concentration efforts of some of the people at the club will be out in America.
Yeah, definitely. It was a positive weekend, shall I say. It was a few Chelsea players that won trophies. Let's start with Chelsea women, because what a season they have had. Winning the domestic treble, they beat Man United at Wembley to win the FA Cup. What a season they've had. Sonia Bompasta's just become the 3rd manager to win a domestic treble in the WSL. Laura Harvey did it for Arsenal, and of course, Emma Hayes obviously did it for Chelsea. Just first of all, let's just touch on that as a whole. An incredible first season.
Absolutely. You can't help but think what a wonderful season she's had. And big boots to fill in Emma Hayes. Yeah. You know, probably the biggest boots in women's football, right, at club level. She's come in and done it brilliantly. The fly in the ointment's going to be the Champions League. Yeah. You know, we got well beaten in both of those legs. That's something that we'll look back on and go, what can we do better there? But in terms of domestic, there's done everything.
Unbeaten domestically, unbeaten in the league, unbeaten in the cup competitions. You can't really ask for much more in her first season. And we wondered if there would be a drop-off after Emma Hayes left, and that there hasn't been. Continued the success. But like Jay's touched on, the holy grail for Chelsea is now Champions League. And the way that, I know Barcelona are clearly the best team in the world, but the way that the most dominant force in the WSL kind of falters in the Champions League every year is a little bit troubling. But obviously new money coming into the women's team. The founder of Reddit is invested some money, so the rich just get richer. Yeah. And hopefully with that investment can not only progress Chelsea, but also progress women's football.
Yeah, absolutely. Another player that won a bit of silverware over the weekend was Ben Chilwell. He is, of course, still a Chelsea player on loan at Crystal Palace, winning the FA Cup. I mean, I'm so happy for him. I know he put on Instagram, you know, finally got my hands on the FA Cup. I know he probably didn't play as big a part as he probably would have wanted to since going to Crystal Palace, but still nice for him to pick up a piece of silver at the end of the season.
I think everyone other than Manchester City and maybe some Brighton fans wanted Palace to win, right?
Yeah.
That's how it felt, because look, we want to see the underdog win. First major trophy in 120 years, whatever, how many
it's incredible.
It is, and they thoroughly deserved it. A special mention for Mark Gehi as well, Cobham, a graduate, the captain. So, well done, Ben. Well done him.
Yeah, no, really, really happy for Ben. And if you think about his history in the FA Cup, the 2021 final against Leicester, he scored the winner that got
the equaliser right at the death.
Yeah, and like the equaliser, and obviously the Leicester fans were giving him stick the whole 90 minutes, and it was good to see him happy and with a smile on his face, because we know for Ben Chilwell it's been a difficult couple of years. Just 3 or 4 years ago, when you had Reece James on the right and Ben Chilwell on the left, they were two of the best fullbacks or wingbacks in the
Under
world.
Tuchel,
Under Tuchel. And we thought it was the second coming of Trent and Andy Robertson. Obviously, injuries have curtailed his career, but it's good to see him happy and win silverware on the weekend. And yeah, long may it continue.
Yeah, I wonder what's going to happen with Ben Chilwell. Obviously, he'll be coming back to the club, and
he'll be one of those that goes either on loan or sold. That's another one. That, talk about clearing the decks earlier.
Yeah,
and he's a big wage earner as well, so that'll be something they'll be looking at.
What about, I was going to say Nathaniel Chalobah. He hasn't played for Chelsea for a long time. Trevor Chalobah, since he got recalled from his loan at Crystal Palace, I think he's been absolutely brilliant. I think he's been arguably Chelsea's best centre-back. I think Levi Colwill actually has really stepped up, especially these last couple of months. But where do you stand on Trev? Because I think when he got brought back, I was like, oh, it feels a little bit harsh because are you going to play him? He has obviously played and he's played in most of our important games. Yeah. But again, why am I seeing reports that he's going to be a backup or he's going to be sold? He deserves to start based off of his performances.
The treatment of Trev, if we're being completely honest, has not been great, right? Like he thought he found a home at Palace. He formed an incredible back three with Lacroix and Mark Guehi. He'd probably be a little bit cut. He didn't play in the FA Cup final, picked up some silverware as well. But he come to Chelsea. I remember his first game, he played against Wolves, and he was absolutely brilliant in that game. And he's been one of our best centre backs. Levi Colwill's also stepped up. They formed quite a nice partnership together. And I don't love the idea of selling him because, again, we hope we invest in the summer, maybe bring in that dominant A-side centre-back that we've been crying out for a long time, a grown-up. But Trevor's shown that he's good enough to play for Chelsea. He's shown that he loves the football club. He didn't want to leave in the first place, go out on loan. Obviously, it was a very troubling kind of pre-season of summer where it was will he go, will he stay? It wasn't training in the first team. But I would like to keep Trev at the football club. I think he understands what it means to be proper Chelsea, and I feel like he can definitely add something as well. If it's starting or maybe as a squad player, I think Trevor Chalobah is a very, very good footballer. I don't want to see him leave the football club. Yeah,
it seems to be an ongoing theme of letting players go when they don't actually really want to go anywhere. But
well, it's that instant profit off the bottom line. It's a phrase in football now that us football fans didn't know what that was 10 years ago. Now, with financial regulations, he might be better off in terms of the club on the balance books and another club than he is in the squad, which I totally disagree with you.
Yeah.
Totally disagree with you.
Right, well, it is 13 years to the day, the 19th of May 2012, when Chelsea won our first Champions League trophy in Munich against Bayern Munich in their own backyard. I've actually got shivers just saying that. Just first of all, an incredible night, possibly the best night in Chelsea's history. Jace, where were you? What were you doing? I think I remember, weren't you on Chelsea TV? I feel like I remember seeing you, Gigi, and everyone going mad when we won
Cow, Graham Stewart, Frank Sinclair. Yeah, it was one of those, you remember where you were moments, not difficult as a football fan when it's so iconic.
Yeah.
It was just an unbelievable journey, like a roller coaster. And not just that, Kweku and I were talking about the journey to the final as well. Of course, we started off with AVB. Robbie came in, we were getting thumped away at Napoli, 3-1. Then the Branislav Ivanovic late winner in extra time. John Terry getting sent off in the semi-final, going down 10 men, 1-0 down, 2-0 down.
Against the best team in the world.
And then, Ramirez pops up with, and then the missed penalty. And honestly, the journey. But on that particular day, it was, I was sobbed.
Yeah.
Absolutely, I'm getting hungry. I sobbed on that day. It was one of those moments that you thought you'd never, ever see, Kings of Europe. And some clubs in London are still chasing it.
Yeah, they are. Still the only team in London with a or two European Cups. Kweku, you were there.
Yes.
You were there.
It was just three of my favourite Chelsea games, or my three favourite Chelsea games of all time are all in that season and all in that run. Obviously, the final's incredible, but for me, the game against Barcelona at Camp Nou, again there, and in the gods sitting there. I didn't even get to see the Torres goal. I was already falling over. But it was just a magical run with, like, a band of misfits, really. We thought our time was maybe between 2004 and 2010, when Lampard, Drogba and Terry were in their prime. But this came out of nowhere, had a poor league season. Like Jace mentioned, AVB went. We won the FA Cup as well, by the way, in that year, and won the Champions League. The storylines were amazing. Like you mentioned, 3-1 down, away against Napoli. Ashley Cole clears it off the line. If he doesn't clear it, it's a different game. Yeah. In the home game, one of my favourite games of all time, Drogba scores, Lampard scores, Terry scores, and Branner scores the winner. It was just incredible. Obviously, Benfica was a little bit easier. Then we play against the best team in the world in the final. Obviously, win the first leg. Didier Drogba does what he does in big games. Yeah. Down to 10 men. Like, no one gives us a chance. Ramirez is my favourite Chelsea goal of all time. Lampard with an incredible assist. And not only that, Messi misses a penalty and we go and score the other goal. Honestly, I feel like...
If you wrote a script, right, you went to Hollywood and you said, right, here's, I've got the script, they'd say, right, again, that never happened.
Yeah.
You know, and it wasn't. It felt like name of the cup, but we still had to go to the backyard and still turn over a Bayern Munich. By the way, with no John Terry, no Branislav Ivanovic. You know, they're two of our most influential
Ryan
defenders.
Bertrand starting.
Left midfield. He didn't even start left back. He started left midfield in a his debut was in a Champions League final.
And think about how different Drogba's legacy would have been if Messi would have scored that goal or Robin scores the goal, the penalty in the final. Drogba gets away a penalty in semi-final, final. They missed both of them, and in his final kick to Chelsea, obviously he comes back. The penalty to win it, the emotion, the fact that it was Robbie winning it as well. Chelsea, oh man, honestly, I can't talk about it.
It makes me so happy. Like I was quite young. I think me and Kweku, me and you are around the same age, but I was watching it in a pub, like local to me, with loads of Spurs fans. Yeah. So the fact that we won it and then knocked them out of the Champions League in the process was absolutely perfect. I mean, I wasn't there. Like, I was at Porto, so I think, you know, if you're there, you hold such special memories. Yeah. But I think for most Chelsea fans, if you were of our age or above, the best night in Chelsea's history.
My best night as a Chelsea fan. Yeah, I know what happened in Porto some years later, but to get your hands on it for the first time, and it was the circumstances that we just discussed. It did feel as though we were up against it so many times. Even the final to go 1-0 down with 8 minutes left or whatever it was. You know, you think that's it, a chance gone. It was our first corner of the game.
Yeah.
You know, Didier scores the header. Oh. And Torres won the header, the corner, I seem to believe, off the bench. Yeah. You know, and some of the teams that, you know, some of the players in there, it wasn't Chelsea's strongest team, even they meant over the years. But, oh, wowzers. Yeah, it's one of those moments you just... Thank God we finally got our hands on it.
It felt like it was never going to come. And the fact that it came in that fashion was just, it was unbelievable, man. It's just, honestly...
The best.
I've had a child now. That's the best moment of my life.
you have to say that.
That's the second best moment of my life, hands down.
I think even just like the Ramirez goal is one of the most underrated goals still to this day. The Mata corner was inch perfect. I love the Torres goal, because he tries to dribble it out from his own box and then he just carries on running when he's lost it for whatever reason. Ends up on the halfway line with no one around him.
Yeah, where's he going?
Takes it around. Ashley Cole just lumps it and he's like, why is Torres on the halfway line on his own?
And the fact there was a penalty shootout as well. We lost against United 4 years earlier in the penalty shootout. It was heartbreaking, obviously, John Terry slip. And we had a poor record in penalty shootouts up until that point. Yeah. Like, we missed our first one as well. And Petr Cech goes the right way for every single penalty. It was just, God, I can't talk about it.
Name on the cup. Name on the cup, and hopefully we will have our name on the cup. Not that cup, sadly, but at the Conference League. Before we move on to the top 6, top 5 race, there is a big European final this week, which is Spurs against Manchester United. It's the lesser of two evils, really. But I put this out on my social media because I was intrigued to see who Chelsea fans wanted to win. Now, I think age comes into it. I think if you're a UK fan, I think that comes into it. Jace, just in a word, Spurs. Yeah, I'm with you. I cannot get my head around a world in which Chelsea fans
they win cups. They win Champions League. They win Premier League.
They win Europa League.
They win Europa League. They've done this. You know, this is, you know, I want to keep Spurs there. Yeah. You know, I want to just see the pain of them losing another.
The hope of getting there just to be pulled away.
I mean, the truth is, whatever happens,
it's
one English club's going to lose.
Yeah.
And there's going to take some pleasure in that, but I'd rather Spurs be the team that receive another bloody nose.
Well, has anyone seen if it's Spurs? It would be absolutely legendary. But I'm going to be honest with you, and again, I'm getting absolute pelts from my Chelsea mates. They're giving pelters for this.
I'm going to give you pelters as well.
Same here.
I want Spurs to win it. The problem, how
can those words come out of your mouth?
It did struggle to come out of my mouth. Do you know what the reason is? First of all, it's the Europa League. Like, let's be honest, the Europa League, I don't want to disrespect the competition. I've done it too many times on other platforms. I'd rather win the Carabao Cup than the Europa League, but that's a different conversation. The Europa League is a secondary European competition. Spurs are a secondary top football side. I feel like the damage that will happen if Man United win the Europa League, will be more than Spurs. What Spurs will do is they'll parade this trophy around North London, which we never did when we won the Europa League, by the way, because we've won the Champions League.
We're a big club.
Yeah, exactly. They'll parade it around North London and they'll do nothing next season because Levy won't put his hands in his pockets. If Man United win the Europa League, I just worry that they'll be able to start attracting players that we maybe want to get. And so... For Spurs win, I don't care. If it was the Champions League, obviously it's a different story. But the Europa League, let them win it. But I just don't want United to win it.
What you said made me actually spit my water out. My
you not run with the Carabao
my
Cup?
Notes. Not that there's anything on these notes, Jamie, producer.
Can I ask you a real question? A really quick question. What would you rather win, the Carabao Cup or the Europa League?
Europa League.
Okay, fair enough.
I think
myself.
I think I'd rather win the Europa League.
Because that gets you Champions League football.
Yeah, but I also think that rule needs to be changed because why, when you win a trophy, do you not go back in it and be able to defend it? Tell me that.
Yeah, I think it's to encourage teams to take it as seriously as you possibly can. I understand the concept
won't they?
of it. It's just the way it is. We're in a Conference League final. We shouldn't be anywhere near this trophy.
No,
we should, and it's embarrassing that we are. It's also going to be embarrassing if we don't win it. We'll touch on that in a second, I'm sure.
Right, let's move on because we haven't got much time left. We have got 2 finals, like I said earlier in the show. Nottingham Forest away in the Premier League, followed by Real Betis. Out in Poland in the Conference League final. This race for the top 5, Newcastle on 66 points, Chelsea on 66 points, Villa on 66 points, City on 65 points with a game in hand, currently at the time of recording, and Nottingham Forest on 65 points. It is simple though, Jace. Win against Forest and Chelsea play Champions League football next season. But it's never quite as easy as that, is it?
No, you're absolutely right. It's in our own hands. I've got a horrible feeling that we draw with Forest.
Oh, don't say that.
I've got a horrible feeling we draw with Forest, and then you are relying on Manchester United to do us a favour.
But you're quite optimistic about Manchester United perhaps not being as bad as they have been this season because it's their last game.
I do feel the fact that the final would have been played against Spurs on the Wednesday, and I do feel that in front of their own crowd, because the season has been so bad, they will not want to put in a stinkfest, right? And sometimes a club has that aura about them where they are terrible at the moment. I don't think this is as easy as everyone says. I felt the game home against Spurs was a gimme. It turned out to be that case. We didn't play particularly well against Man United. We managed to get over the line. Maybe it's me hanging on desperately to some sort of favour we can get from United. The fact that the final had already been played. I just think it's going to be a draw between us and Forest, and then you're relying on United to help us out.
The way that I'm glad, Kweku, that going into this game, Forest have something to play for, because I think if they didn't, we would get a classic sit back, just going to soak up all the pressure, try and hit you on the counter. But surely there's going to be a time where Forest have to come at us at some point, which hopefully you think would benefit us in the way we play.
Yeah. I think we beat Forest. I think it's in our hands right now, and if you would have given me this at the beginning of the season, I probably would have taken it. We've just got to go away and beat Forest.
You say that, but it's not that easy.
It's not that easy. People think that Newcastle are out of this, by the way, and I know they're home against Everton. But, weird things happened on the last day of the season. And, Newcastle are on the same amount of points as us. We could potentially finish 3rd. And City, by the way, who everybody expects to win their last 2 games of the season, at the time of recording, haven't played Bournemouth yet. Bournemouth are a tricky customer. I know they've fallen off, but they've got European aspirations. And then City on the final day of the season have got Fulham away from home, which is no gimme either. We saw Fulham turn things around on the weekend to get a win against
they're still chasing.
They're still chasing as well.
Potential European football. So there's a lot. There's nothing in there other than Manchester United and Everton. Every other team has got something to try and fight for, and you're hoping that Man United will have a bit of pride to fight for. There's been lack of that, hasn't there, this season?
I think actually what you say that, it's actually, I think regardless of what happens on Wednesday in the Europa League final, if Man United lose, I think Spurs are just Spurs, but if Man United lose, they're going to they have to end that game on a high. And if they win, they're taking that Europa League back to Old Trafford and want it to be like a massive party. So actually, you're sort of slowly convincing me that game isn't a done deal, but I don't know. I just don't know if you can rely on Man United.
I don't think you can rely on Man United, but I do feel that there will be an element of last game in what's been the worst season in Premier League history for them, one of the worst seasons ever for the football club. I think that they want to sign off in front of their own crowds and put in some sort of fighting performance. That's what I'm hoping. I'm clinging. Kweku, clinging there.
I'm also clinging, but I think we'll win our game, so it doesn't matter. I'm looking at Newcastle. I'm telling you.
You're not sure Everton, but I think
because Isak's out as well.
Yeah.
Potentially, he didn't play on the weekend. Got a groin injury. I think we beat Forest, so it doesn't really matter. And it's circa what 02-03 season where we played against Liverpool final game of the season. We had to win it to get into Champions League. We know what the job is right now. Obviously, it would have been nice to get a result against Newcastle last week, a couple of weeks ago. So it would be a better position right now. But I think we beat Forest and we qualify for the Champions League next season. And it looks like a good season.
Imagine if we'd have just beaten Ipswich home or away.
Oh, don't.
Like, just imagine if we'd have beaten one of the worst teams we've ever seen in the Premier League.
There's quite a few of those moments, though.
But that Ipswich game
Fulham
at home.
Yeah, I mean, 1-0 up.
In like the 90th minute.
I mean, you know, look, don't do that to yourself, guys. It's torture.
We need these players to get up for it, Jason.
Yeah,
to be honest, as much as we're all happy about the result against United, in that game against Newcastle and against United, I need to see more. I need to see them actually fully get up for a game which we need to win. I need to see everything positive about
disciplined
Chelsea.
As well, though.
Yeah.
Disciplined.
Yeah.
That's you know, we cannot afford to go down to 10 men like we did against Newcastle the other day. But this is the first goal. You know, that if they get that first goal, Forest, I think that's going to be incredibly tough to turn that around. If we get the first goal, it puts them in a position they don't like. They would rather be a team that can have less possession and try and counter-attack. What they don't want to be in a position where they have to come out. That first goal cannot put a price on it.
No, you can't. And also, our second final, the Europa Conference League final against Real Betis. I mean, this is a competition that we've all said we're almost embarrassed to be in. And to be honest, we shouldn't have been in it. We should have been in the Europa League. Our league form last season, we were worthy of playing in the Europa League. But this is our only real test we'll have had in the Conference League this season.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's not even worth thinking about if we lose.
I just want to get it out of the way. I don't want to disrespect the competition because there's so many teams in there that want to win it. And if Betis win it, they'll be absolutely delighted. We saw what it did for West Ham a few years ago. But for Chelsea, like, there is no upside, right? If we do win it, no one's going to give us plaudits and say, well done for winning the trophy. They're like, your squad costs 1.6 billion. If we don't win it, we'll stay off social media because we're going to get absolutely rinsed. We have to win it. Thursday night's been a slog. It's been an absolute slog this season. Just had to get through it. It's like cold porridge. Just eating it and just having to try and get through it. We'll beat Betis. I don't know if we'll make it easy for ourselves, though.
Sunday's bigger for me.
Way bigger.
Sunday away at Forest is bigger than the final.
Yeah, this is like asking fans, you know, would you rather... I mean, I think for Chelsea it's different because we've been there, we've won everything there is to win. Yeah. But playing Champions League football next season, to me, and to you, obviously, is far more important than winning the Europa Conference League. Even though it's winning a trophy, and you can argue that you get that mentality of, you know what it is now to win stuff, but it's a young team, but Champions League football is way more important. You know, we get a choice, by the way.
I do that bizarre,
we get a choice. If we qualify for the league through the if we qualify for the Champions League through the league and we win the Conference League, we get the choice whether we want to play in the Europa League or the Champions League next season.
What is that? What is that?
Can I just ask?
We have a choice.
Can I just ask? If we choose Europa League, where does it go down to?
Oh yeah, what happens? Is that like fifth spot just then like scrapped? Or does Villa get it? Like,
who cares? Yeah. Who cares?
We choose in Europa League, yeah?
Yeah, come on.
So are we going to finish in the top 5, Jace, and are we going to win the Conference League?
I'll say this much. I think we draw against Forest, and I think we rely on Man United.
Kweku?
We beat Forest, we beat Betis, we finished in the top 4.
Yep.
And we win the Conference League. Good season from Maresca in this first year.
Oh, God, it's so nerve-wracking. Anyway, that is it for another episode of Inside Chelsea. We will be back after the Forest game and after the Conference League to hopefully talking about what a good season it has been for Enzo Maresca in his first season. Thank you very, very much for your company. Thank you to Jason.
Thanks, Liv.
Thank you to Kweku, as always. Oh, I'm nervous. I bet you are as well. But anyway, we'll see you next time. Up the Chelsea.
Up the Chelsea.